Hey guys, welcome to my channel. If you read the title of today's video, yes, my tenant's dogs ate my house, and no part of that is clickbait. There will be plenty of photos included. So I'm just gonna have some fun, play with some makeup, and tell you one hell of a story. So if you're interested in that, just go ahead and keep watching. I'm just gonna be playing with a few different things today. I'm feeling minty green. I've got some palettes, I've got a pigment, I've got hella makeup on my hoodie, and I haven't even started yet. My base is already done, everything but my highlights. If you saw my video trying this thing out for the first time, this highlight, ladies and gentlemen, both and neither. I'm actually gonna scoot over a little bit so that I can insert some pictures. So for a little backstory, I purchased this home about 2.5 years ago now. It's a duplex. I live downstairs. And the upstairs is what I was renting out. My hair, by the way, this video is not sponsored by Batiste Dry Shampoo, but it should be. So yeah, the upstairs is the unit I was renting out. When I first bought the house, it did have tenants and they were supposed to be under contract for like 6 months after I purchased the house, but the sellers broke the lease. So my first priority was to get the upstairs fixed up so that I can rent it back out. So I worked like crazy. I painted every surface in the house. Yes, I painted 100-year-old gumwood trim white. I know it's a sin, but I'm a millennial. What can I say? Gray walls, white trim, dark floors. So I fixed up the upstairs. I worked like crazy. I was working crazy hours and working on the house every single day to try to get it rented back out. I put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears upstairs, let me tell you, and downstairs. So I got the upstairs fixed up pretty quickly, and I started showing it to potential tenants. I met with the girlfriends, and she seems really, really sweet. She had 3 kids. She's about my age. She was really sweet. She was so excited about the house. Like, some people would come through and they'd be like, one girl asked me if I could change the countertops and the cabinets for her. Girl, bye. But when I met with this girl, she was so excited about the house. She was just so happy to have her own place. She was moving in with her fiance and the 3 boys. She seemed really, really sweet. My mom was here. Even my mom liked her. She was so excited about the house. She loved everything. She told me her fiance was a nurse. She was also a nurse, but her fiance was like a traveling nurse. He had like 3 different jobs. She did ask me if I accepted pets. Now, I'm an animal lover. I have 6 cats. I know. When she told me she had a dog, she said it was a German Shepherd. I was a little concerned, but I'm a firm believer that the animal's behavior is a direct result of how it's brought up. There's no bad breeds of dogs. It's how they're raised, how they're brought up, how they're trained. So when she said she had a German Shepherd, it was a puppy at the time, but a German Shepherd's only going to be a puppy for like 3 minutes. So I was a little concerned, but I was kind of just set on her demeanor, how happy she was. She said, oh, you know, my fiance's a neat freak and he's really OCD and he keeps everything clean and I keep everything clean. I don't play about my boys being messy and this and that. So, you know, I had some concerns, but it was definitely influenced by the fact that I was so anxious to get it rented out. But they seemed great. When I met with the fiance, they came to do the walkthrough and sign the lease. He seems really excited as well. They were very well kept. They looked clean. They looked like great people. They didn't, you know, strike me as messy people. Or when they came to do that walkthrough, he said, "Did she tell you that we have 2 dogs?" I said, 2 dogs? He said, "Yeah, we have a German Shepherd and a Rottweiler." Now at this point, I'm even more concerned, but I've already met with so many people. I did open houses. I offered the place to 2 separate families. It didn't work out with either of them. So as concerned as I was, I went ahead with renting to them. So right from the beginning, I think before they even moved in, it was just nothing but problems. Right away. They would text me and, "Oh, can you take her name off the lease? She's not moving in." And then she would text me, "Never mind, we're good." And then it would be, "No, never mind, take my name off the lease. We're not together anymore." So she did end up moving in. They moved in all together. They did have the dogs. And when I was working down here, I would hear these dogs that were definitely not puppies anymore, just running from one end of the house to the other. And I was so nervous about my floors. I have 100-year-old solid wood floors. The floors upstairs were in beautiful condition. For this to be a 100-year-old house, the floors looked great. So when I'd be down here and I would hear this, I'd text her, you know, like, "I'm worried about the floors. The dogs are running from one side to the other. I can hear them like trying to get under the bed." And she would say, you know, "No, I haven't noticed any damage on the floors. Don't worry about it. We're going to get crates. We're getting crates for the dogs, so they'll be crated when we're not home." So that made me feel a little better. It shouldn't have. But so they did end up getting the crates, and she did end up moving out. They did contact me and say, you know, "This time for real, I'm moving out. Can you take my name off the lease? I won't be living here anymore." You know, I drew up the paperwork and I told them, you know, "I'll take your name off the lease, but this is it. I'm not obligated to do this. If you change your mind again, you change your mind. You're not getting your name back on the lease." So she ended up telling me not to worry about it, don't take her name off the lease, that she was going to keep her name on the lease and still be held responsible for the property, even though she wasn't living here. So because the fiance was a traveling nurse, I believe he would leave on like a Friday night and he would go to the hospital he worked at, and then he would return like Monday morning or something like that. He'd be gone the entire weekends. His solution to now these dogs are by themselves in the house was his brother. His brother, I guess, lived nearby. So his brother was going to be the one taking the dogs out and watching them when he was gone. His brother was a character. Let me tell you. I would have never in a million years guessed that these two guys were related. The tenant was clean cut, hair always done, dressed well, always looked clean. I'll give him that. He looked clean. I'll give him that. His brother just looked... I don't even know how to say this. His brother just looked disheveled. He looked like he was making his own clothes. He was something else. I don't know. So one day I came in the house and I smelled a certain recreational activity of the illegal variety. And I looked around. I didn't want to automatically assume it was coming from upstairs, but I did some investigating. I went to the shared hallways and the stairways, and I could smell it. It was definitely coming from upstairs. So I immediately texted my tenant, and I asked him, why do I smell this in my house? I made it very clear that I don't want smoking in my property. So he responds, I'm really sorry about that. It must be my brother. I'll talk to him about it. It won't happen again. So that was the first time. Definitely wasn't the last. When I was working on the downstairs, I noticed water stains on the ceiling. And I didn't remember them being there before. So now I'm thinking, what if these dogs are just peeing on my floor? So I text the tenant. I told her that there are some water spots. I need to take a look upstairs just to make sure nothing's leaking. So she tells me, go ahead. She's gonna be at the property. She's gotta go get some of her stuff. She can let me in. So she lets me in, and I go upstairs, and the brother's there. I'm looking at the floor. I don't see any damage in the area with the water stains. But I happen to glance over, and the polyurethane on the floor in this one spot is just gone. It's all bubbled up. It's peeling. And I look at the brother. I'm like, what happened there? Like, what is that? So he tells me, the dogs took a dump on the floor. I cleaned it with Clorox toilet bowl cleaner. Sir, you cleaned 100-year-old wood floors with Clorox toilet bowl cleaner. So I text the male tenant. Let's just call him Jose. So I text Jose, and I let him know, I took a look around. I didn't notice anything that would be causing the water spots on the ceiling, but I did see the damage to the wood floor. Just so you know, the repair for that is coming out of your security deposit. So he proceeds to get incredibly defensive. He tells me, don't worry about it. It'll be gone by the time I leave. I'm going to fix it. And I tell him, you can't do that. The terms of your lease very clearly state that you are not allowed to do any repairs to the home without my permission. The last thing I needed was him trying to fix my floors and making it even worse. At this point, they've only been in the house for maybe 2 months, if that. So on top of the issues with the brother, I'm still having issues with the dogs. I hear them either they're crated and they're just losing it in the crates. They're spinning around in circles. I could hear the crates scraping the floors. Or when they're not crated, the dogs are fighting. These dogs were fighting so bad to the point where I would have to text Jose and tell him, look, if you're not in town, call your brother and get him over here because these dogs are going to kill each other. I would hear them fighting at the door, and I would have to go knock on the door because at this point the dogs knew me. They recognized me enough that if I knocked on the door and called their names, they would come to the door and it would kind of distract them from the fight. I regret not calling animal control so much. I wish I had gotten these dogs out of this jerk's care for sure. I remember it would be some nights I would be leaving and I would hear the dogs in the crates just losing their minds, crying, yelping, barking. I would sit in my driveway and I would wait to see if I could hear the dogs being loud past the time of the noise ordinance so that I could call animal control, but I never ended up calling on them, and I didn't want to have even more issues with this guy. So then on top of everything, I end up having issues with the furnace. I call a repairman. He works on the furnace once. It worked for a little bit, and then, you know, Jose texts me again. Furnace is out. I've been a landlord for like 3 months. I don't know what to do. You know, I'm offering him alternate heat sources. I tell him, you know, I'll get you a space heater. He tells me don't worry about it. He's gonna be staying with his mom. So the repairman fixed the furnace twice and still having issues with it. It still stops working. I end up calling in a big company and they tell me, my furnace is trash. It needs to be replaced. Now, if you've ever replaced a furnace, that's a $3,500 job. So I'm like, great, this is exactly what I need. Now I need a new furnace. Luckily for me, I have a coworker who was in school to be an electrical engineer. And he had done some work on furnaces before. So I essentially hire him to replace my furnace. So he comes in, puts in the new one. And obviously, we need to adjust the thermostat for the heat to kick on. We need to see if it's working. So I text Jose, I let him know, you know, the furnace has been replaced. We need to check if it's working. Is someone available to turn on the thermostat? He tells me no, he's not there, and his brother's not there either. Can I wait? And I tell him, you know, me and my friend, we both have to work. It's getting late. Like, is there any way I can just run in, turn on the thermostat, and run out? We really need to see if it's working now. Like, I don't want this guy to have to come back again just to see if the furnace is working. You know, we gotta get to work. Can we please just run in? I'll turn on the thermostat, see if it kicks on. If it's good, I'll turn it off. I'll run back out. So he gives me written permission to enter the home and turn on the thermostat. So I run upstairs, I walk in, and from the thermostat, standing at the thermostat, I can see the sun porch on the front of the house. Now the sun porch is beautiful. It's one of my favorite parts of the house. Leaded glass windows all around. Open it up in the summertime. It's so nice. It was nice. So from standing at the thermostat, I happen to look over and the 2 dog crates are on the sun porch. And I can see that my sun porch is destroyed. My heart fell out of my ass. So when we turn on the thermostat, the carbon monoxide detector starts going off. So I shut it off right away, shut off the thermostat. My friend's calling me, you know, my friend's on the phone downstairs. He's telling me, you know, something must not be hooked up right. Just turn it off. You know, I'll come back another day and I'll take another look at it. So obviously, carbon monoxide detector is going off. I panic. I start opening the doors and, you know, making sure that the house is aired out. And so I go to the sun porch and I get a closer look and every inch of trim on that porch is chewed on. And not just chewed on, eaten away. I am devastated. So, obviously I have to get to work. I don't have time to be devastated. So I make sure everything's aired out. And I leave the house. I lock everything back up. And I text Jose. I tell him, under no circumstances can you turn the heat on. It's still not working right. Leave the furnace off. I'm going to have, my friend come back and take a look at it. And just so you know, I saw the porch. I'm starting the eviction process. You gotta go. So that starts an argument. He gets defensive. He starts asking me, well, why were you on the porch? You said you were just gonna turn on the heat. Why were you on the porch? And I tell him, I can see the porch from the thermostat and the carbon monoxide detector went off. I had to open up some windows and air everything out because the dogs are there. So he gets defensive. He starts an argument. He's telling me, you got to take me to court. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not leaving. It's just a couple scratches. Take me to court. I'm not leaving. And I tell him, like, your brother has been doing drugs in my house for months. So on top of the damage, I have multiple conversations addressing the drugs being done in my house. How could you possibly think you're going to win a court case to stay in the home? So he tells me, my brother's not even on the lease, dumbass. Did you read your lease, dumbass? So I proceed to read the section in the lease that states that it doesn't matter who's doing drugs in my house. If you let them in, if it's you, your brother, your uncle, your auntie's dog, or your goldfish, if you let them in my house and they're doing drugs on my property, that's grounds for eviction. So we end up in an argument. I tried really hard to stay professional, but then he called me a dumbass, and, well, yeah. So we end up arguing. He keeps telling me I'm being very unprofessional. I'm like, dude, file a complaint with the complaint department. I don't know what to tell you. So I end up sticking around the house. Obviously I wanted to make sure that, since the carbon monoxide detector did go off and the dogs are upstairs, I end up sticking around for a little bit, making sure, I still hear the dogs, everything's good, it doesn't go off again. I end up going to work late, and I think I stayed at work for maybe an hour. I was just dumbstruck. Like, I didn't even know. I couldn't even speak. Like, my friend that did the furnace was there, and he's like, you should have remained professional, and you shouldn't have said anything. You should have just did what you had to do. Under no circumstances am I ever going to run a real estate business and be the kind of landlord where my tenant can call me a dumbass and I'm going to maintain a customer is always right kind of attitude. I'm not the one. So, I find an attorney, I get the eviction process started, and he gets served. Ooh, that is a pretty color. So he gets served with the eviction papers, and it's still continuous problems with this guy. He's texting me at like 6 a.m. talking about, I got your letter, and it doesn't mean anything. This paper means nothing. I'm not going anywhere. Like, dude, you got served an official eviction notice written by an attorney. I didn't type this up on Microsoft Word and tape it to your front door. So he proceeds, during all of this, to move his new girlfriend into the house. Like, he thinks I scribbled this eviction notice with a crayon on construction paper and it means nothing. And I tell the attorney, I email him, I let him know he's moved someone else in the house. So now the attorney says, now we have to serve them another eviction notice because there's another person in the property. We don't want them to win on a technicality because the eviction notice wasn't served to everyone in the property. So now we got to get another notice served. So he still thinks these eviction notices mean nothing. But one day, out of nowhere, he ends up telling me, I'll leave, but I'm not paying the rent for the remainder of the lease term. Duh. Who told you you had to? Who gets evicted and continues to pay the rent until the lease was up? So we managed to be cordial enough for him to just get out of my house. And at this point, I'm terrified to go up in the apartment and really look at the damage. I don't think I went up there to really look for weeks. I was just nervous to see the extent of the damage. So I finally go up there. I can't even tell you how devastating it is to just see your home, your hard work, your blood, sweat, and tears just destroyed. The porch, I don't even have words. Like, how do you, as a decent human being, which obviously he wasn't, just see that your dogs are destroying someone's house and don't do anything to stop it? It would have been as simple as taking some cardboard. I know they had cardboard because they left it scattered all over my front yard and it's blowing down the street, and I had to tell them, you gotta put this in the recycling or the garbage. I'm the dirty house on the block now. You can't just throw it on the front curb and let it blow down the street. So I know they had cardboard. They could have easily just cut up the cardboard boxes and just slid it between the crates and the windows. Simple as that. But it was the porch, the floor on the porch was just soaked with urine. There's a dark spot where you can just tell the urine was probably pouring out the crate and just puddling in this corner. It was just, windows were broken, 100-year-old leaded glass windows that are ridiculously expensive to fix. They were broken out the doors, other windows were cracked, the floor was destroyed. I don't know what they were doing to clean the floors. The floors were in beautiful shape. I mean, they had their damage because it's a 100-year-old house that's been used as a rental property for a long time. So, you know, it wasn't perfect, but they were still in really, really good shape. The walls were dented and scraped. The kitchen was just, the fridge was disgusting. The cabinet doors were ripped off the kitchen cabinets. Like, what do you even do to a cabinet door to rip it in two pieces? That's what my cabinet doors look like when I smash them with a sledgehammer. What kind of normal everyday activities break a cabinet door in two pieces? Like, I was just at a loss for words. How in 4 months they managed to cause so much damage. Like, imagine if they had stayed there for the entire term of the lease. I was completely devastated. I couldn't go in the house for months. I wouldn't go upstairs. I just avoided it. I didn't want to look at it. I would just get just livid. I can't even express the anger I felt every time I walked up there. And he just played it off. He literally called it a couple scratches. And at one point he said, you know, you gotta expect damage when you rent out a house. Stuff like this happens. You know, there are people who will really destroy your house. And I'm like, is that a threat? Like, at one point I was barricading the downstairs. I had like scraps of wood jammed up against the doors and in the windows. Like, I didn't know if he was threatening me, if he was, you know, gonna get somebody to come really destroy my house to teach me a lesson. Like, I had to barricade my house. Like, this guy was crazy. So, my camera's dying. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up and come back to finish the story. So, yeah, you know, it's just devastating. And it's not even the monetary devastation. I mean, obviously I kept a security deposit, but just the fact that this is a 100-year-old house. This house has seen so many people call it their home. And this douchebag ruined it in 4 months. Like, I know 3 people who have lived in this house. One of my managers at work, another one of my coworkers, and my sister's childhood best friend have all lived in this house. Like, what are the odds that 4 people who know each other have all lived in this same home, and just, it has stood up to countless families and kids and probably some more pets, and it stood the test of time, and it looked as good as it did. And he didn't even have the decency as a human being to care for this home. Like, and he just ruined it without any concern, without any, not even a second thought that he was walking into this house every day and just looking at it like, that's normal. Like, that's fine. That's what houses should look like. You know, I'm not even mad at the dogs. I feel so bad for those dogs, and I wish I had called animal control and gotten them out of his care, because, you know, you lock a Rottweiler and a German Shepherd. These dogs were huge, and they were locked in crates for hours upon hours. Yeah, they were depressed, and they were anxious and sad, and of course they chewed on their surroundings. Like, I wish so much that I had called animal control and just gotten these dogs taken from this guy, and I found papers in the kitchen afterwards for emergency vet visits for the dogs actually biting each other, and I think one of them ate a Tide Pod or something. I wish I could say that I was a bigger person and I wished him the best, but I don't. I don't actually. He said he wanted to buy properties and do the same thing. I hope that karma shoves her foot right up his ass and he gets everything that he deserves. Every ounce of it. I'm still working on the house upstairs. I've still been fixing it to try to get it rented back out. I definitely switched my priorities to getting the downstairs ready for myself to move into. So I'm still working on it. I'll try to put some pictures of what I've managed to do with the porch. You know, I'm not an expert. I've kind of just been fixing everything. I do watch a lot of HGTV and a lot of DIY Network, so that's where my skills come from. I'll restore as much of it as I can. It'll never be what it was. Never. It is what it is. I can only do the best to get it to look as nice as it did. And no, I did not sue this piece of garbage. I should have sued the draws off of this guy, but after all of that, I really just wanted him out. Just get out of my house, just leave me alone. I don't want to deal with you anymore. So I didn't sue him. I didn't get any compensation for the damages or the work or the missed time that I could have had to rent it out. So yeah, that was my story of how my tenants' dogs ate my house. I hope it lived up to the title. And this is a makeup look. I know I wasn't really talking about the products I used, but just as a little recap, I used the Colourpop Mint to Be palettes and the Going Coconuts. I used some single shadows from Give Me Glow. This is Electric Mint and Halo. And I used a pigment from the Zodiac collection that Kathleen Lights did in collaboration with Colourpop, and this is The Fish, and the Colourpop Cream Gel Liner in the shade Ice Beaker. So that was it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you would consider liking, subscribing, and coming back for some more content. Bye.